Order online at picassospizza.net.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to this Trainwreck Sports podcast, where we are here to pay the bills. And the Bills had a little bit of a exciting game on Sunday that we're gonna break it all down. And we've got a full squad. We got a full offensive line here today. We got Mike Bunt. I think you'll be the left tackle today, Mike. Oh, whoa, what's going on here? We're gonna put AJ. AJ, you're gonna take the right side. You're gonna take the right tackle position. Parthy, you're the center. We're putting you right in. You're going to call out everything. You're calling the shots. And me and Carson are going to round it out at the guard. You take left. I'll take right. We got a full squad, and the whole gang is here because we had the game of the year in week one. I guess we could have maybe predicted it, but I don't think any of us could have predicted how that went and the way it came out. The Bills defeat the Ravens in an epic Sunday Night Football opener, 41-40. And it's Jets week, which we'll get into at the end here. But let's start with the game of the year, and we'll start with Mike Bunt and go around the horn. The Bills win. They finally won one of these, Mike. We've had throughout the Josh Allen era, we've had a lot of these. I can think back to like the Tampa Bay game, the Eagles game a couple years ago. Obviously, various Chiefs matchups in the regular season and in the playoffs. But it seems like we've always had the short end of the stick when we have these big epic matchups that everybody's talking about. Not so much Sunday, even though it looked like it for about 58 or 56 minutes of the game. So what was your feeling watching it? Let's go. I mean, just after immediate reactions after the game and just kind of how you were feeling throughout. Like where was your win probability level as the game was going through?
Yeah, throughout the game, depression, sadness, stopped caring at one point. It was like, this is really crappy and we're going to be 0-1. After the game, elation, excitement, like going crazy, screaming, everything. It was unbelievable, the twist, the turn in emotion from maybe 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter to the final game-winning field goal. But yeah, unbelievable turn of events. If we're being real, for 55 minutes, the Bills were getting it handed to them. And it kind of just goes to show you don't need your defense to be dominant. You just need them to make big plays and big moments. And when it happened in this game, the Bills were able to get the stops when they needed at the end to finally get just enough to come back. But definitely not the way you'd script a football game. A lot of things to work on and a lot of things that they can improve on after watching the tape. But just happy to get the win. And tiebreaker-wise, this is going to look really good in January when the Bills are trying to get into the playoffs and go for that 1 seed.
Yeah, I share your sentiments on what my feelings were. Even as they were kicking the final field goal, it was just, wait a minute. We're actually going to be talking about a win tomorrow, right? After what we just saw. I mean, we if you've been a Bills fan long enough, or if you're an aficionado of Bills history, obviously you know the comeback game, but there's a few more to go around. I think there was one with Todd Collins against the Colts in 1997 or something like that. And there's been one or two last-second heroics by Josh Allen. Actually, you would think that, but there's a curious stat about Josh Allen here. He has previously been 0-16 when starting a drive, trailing by a score in the final 4 minutes of regulation. This includes playoffs, which also includes 13 seconds, which really isn't his fault, before the game-winning drive on Sunday. Only Brad Johnson, who was 0-17, had been worse at that since 2000. So I just look at that and I'm like, wait a minute. Josh Allen's never done that before, had a game-winning drive, less than 4 minutes left, trailing by a score. That obviously, when the Bills are so much better than most teams that they play, they're usually going tit for tat, like the Lions or the Rams, and occasionally you lose those games of the year, as we mentioned. But usually they're blowing these teams away with 30 or 40 points on the offensive side, and here they had to do it the hard way, essentially. But AJ, what was your take on how you saw that the end of the game playing out there?
Yeah, so I actually left early.
Whoa!
You don't say.
Oh my God, that's unforgivable, man.
So I left after the punt when they got the holding penalty. or whatever the penalty was to back him up. And then Allen got sacked and they punted it. Me and my buddy looked at each other, walked down the stairs, and then I actually got back to my car and my phone was on 2%, started my car, plugged in my phone, and ended up watching the Keon touchdown live, 4th and 2 when he caught that. I'm like, okay, well, they're down 8. And then obviously the fumble. Derrick Henry never fumbles, by the way. And obviously the Keon catch was insane too. I mean, that was also a lucky play. So a little bit of a horseshoe, stuck out the butts of the Bills there at the end. They got very lucky. But they did, figure it out. I thought that Josh Allen, that final drive, he was really poised. He, gets the completion to Shakir for 5 yards, then hits Coleman on the boundary, scrambles on the next play. Then the false start on Dion when Allen was trying to make those adjustments. And then one of the best throws I thought he's ever made to Joshua Palmer, kind of pump fakes the shallow corner and then fits the ball right over the corner for that big gain. And then obviously the next play, Keon, he sees the defense, what they're doing, and Keon does a nice little quick slant. Luckily, he did get tackled because that actually helped the Bills. The Ravens probably would have gotten the ball back with about 35 seconds and 3 timeouts, and I wouldn't even there was points when I was watching that in my car with my buddy, and obviously we're freaking out, but I'm like, maybe I'm a little happy I'm not there because what if he didn't get tackled or something like that? So I'm just happy that I got to enjoy it and still watch it. I didn't miss it, and I was able to run around the parking lot screaming. All the cars were honking. It was standstill traffic. There was a bunch of cars leaving the lots, but it was an heroic game. Still worried about the defense, worried about the linebackers, but we'll touch about that. I'm sure later in the show, but great win and a great start against a really, really good Ravens team.
Carson, before we get to you, I want to touch on a couple of things you just said. How often does Derrick Henry fumble? 3 times last season, 2024. 1 time he lost, 0 in 2023. So I don't know how 2024 compares to the rest of the league, but it doesn't seem like it happens that often. And as far as, of course, Keon stumbling and getting tackled before he goes in the end zone, obviously anybody that watched 2011 had flashbacks to Fred Jackson getting tackled at the 1 yard line, and then the Bills being able to just kneel out the clock and kick the field goal without giving Tom Brady the ball back. But Carson, go ahead. What was your feeling on the end?
I mean, first of all, that is the greatest comeback I've been a part of in my lifetime. So I was thrilled. I did say with about 8 minutes left, we were watching Big Party. I was like, don't turn it off just yet. I know a lot of people had their fair share of comments about me, Bunt, and AJL choosing the Bills to lose, but it's like when my dad used to tell me growing up, when we had Kelly, there was no turning the TV off, the Bills were coming back. I've kind of felt that the last 2 years in particular, when we were down with the Rams last year and we made that push. Even before that, when we played the Bucs and Brady. So that was just another testament to me that this group is special and they're truly terrific. But to kind of add off of what you guys had, Parthy, I know you just brought up a lot of stats, but for a team, in this case, the Ravens, to score 40-plus points and have over 235 yards rushing, entering Sunday, 277-0, make that 277-1. So that's just kind of shows you the improbability the Bills had entering the situation that they were currently in. They got out. It seemed like they got outplayed for a lot of the game, but for all you box score lovers, the first thing that pops up that you'll love to talk about is Keon Coleman. But after that point, you'll look at it and say, wow, the Bills actually won some stats. So maybe the eye test wasn't all there, but there's a lot of things the Bills have to fix. But positively, want to know. It's AJ. You touched on it a little bit last week. I'm sure we'll get into it later, but this was about as well as week 1 could have went for the Bills. You get the win. AFC East loses. Chiefs lose. And now you have a little bit more of an easier stretch per se coming up, and you can kind of get some footing and maybe a little bit of leverage. Obviously, you can't take teams for granted, but you got to be pretty happy with where the Bills are at right now.
You mentioned the 40-plus point stat that I'm sure a lot of us saw. There's another one. It's 40-plus points and leading by 15 or more after 3 quarters. Those teams are 772-0, or now they're 772-1. Yeah. So there's just all kind of improbable, never before happened stats coming out of this game. Obviously, the win probability percentage at 8 minutes and 37 seconds remaining in the fourth quarter was 1.1%. Some people are saying it was 0.9% at some point. I think we should just christen this game the 1% game. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm cool with it. I'm with you on that.
For sure.
Yeah. I do want to give a few shout-outs before I give it back to Jake. Kamal Porter, appreciate you tuning back in. He's a Ravens fan. He tuned in last week, and obviously a loyal fan. There was a lot of Ravens fans that I interacted good group of people over there. So appreciate you tuning in. We will talk a bit about the Ravens during this broadcast. And we also saw the comment from Steve Noble. He was tweeting me all throughout the game. He told me not to lose faith. So I have to give him credit. His belief never wavered, and he knows a lot about what he's talking about. So credit to Steve.
Yeah, I think we generated a lot of talk on Sunday morning by putting out our predictions post, and there was a immediate reaction to everybody. But hey, we're nothing but honest here. Oh no, that's tough. Come on, like you got to put it. See, in those moments, I probably respect it. You're probably on a higher level. Sometimes you got to do it. You got to just put it on.
You know what?
And just
that takes me back to the comeback game. I literally remember playing Konami NFL on my computer as the Bills were down 35-3, and I started an exhibition game between the Bills and the Oilers. And of course, I was so good at it, and I had a super team, so I was just scoring and scoring. And then the Bills start scoring and scoring, and I start paying more attention to that than my game, of course. So I was trying to will the comeback into existence. I know it had nothing to do with it, of course, but that makes me laugh.
It absolutely did. And Kamal was a champ. He was in our post game comments too. So appreciate you coming here and supporting. And he says, I really do hope we play y'all in the playoffs again. I don't know if I hope that. I think I'm cool with avoiding.
I think we got by last year by the skin of our teeth, to be honest.
But the league, like even the Bill Simmons podcast yesterday was like, I think Josh versus Lamar is the most appointment television in all of sports at this point. And I think it's hard to argue after the kind of game you saw last night and just how the fan bases really get up for these games and everything else. And like my reactions to quick, you guys to share what it was. 8 minutes left. My brother gives me a call and I'm just crashing out. Like that post-game show was going to be a lot different than what it was. I already had the StreamYard set up. I already had a banners. Everything was ready. I was ready to really get into it. And then really, and usually I don't talk to anybody at the end of the games, and it was an awesome moment to be able to just sit there like FaceTiming with my brother and my dad as we're watching this game, just like kind of nobody even saying words, just like being like, what the fuck, like what's going on, just in shock the whole way through. It was a special performance. I scared my cats 15 different times during the game, screaming. Probably never really watched a Bills game in this apartment. I think I freaked out my neighbors too, but all worth it. It probably won't happen. I can't promise it, but probably won't happen again, at least during the regular season here. But just an amazing experience wherever you were in the country world watching this game. Like if you're a Bills fan, a Ravens fan, or just a football fan in general, it paid off. It was the cherry on top of a awesome, football weekend, an awesome week one. But we do have to talk about the star of the show, the star of it all, the guy that the only reason this could possibly happen, Josh Allen. I mean, let's talk about John Robert here with the thing. Josh had more passing yards in the fourth quarter than some QBs had for the entire game. He was 16 of 22 for 251, which is second most, or the most by a quarterback in the fourth quarter since Boomer Esiason, I believe, in the 90s. I think it was something like that. I can't remember the exact stat, but I believe it was since 1996 since this happened. Justin Fields was 16 of 22 for 212 yards the whole game. Jordan Love was 16 of 22 for 180 yards for the entire game. Like what Allen did in that fourth quarter was nothing short of spectacular. And I've never, there's been so many levels that he has reached in the past couple of years that we didn't expect him to be where he's at. I think is beyond all our biggest expectations. My biggest takeaway from this game, as I was finally trying to just, at 2:30 in the morning, trying to gather my thoughts Sunday night, Monday morning, and think about what the biggest thing I wanted to write about and take away. It's just that somehow he's getting better. Like we're at age 29, and that looks like the most complete and evolved he's ever looked. And I never, and like you said, Partham, the comebacks haven't happened the way like Josh saying all the things about guys have a little faith, have some belief. It's it hadn't happened. Like we hadn't seen it. The last game we saw, we had you guys had the ball and weren't able to get it done. But this was a different kind of willpower. And there's a lot of, we're talking about Carson's going to get into Keon Coleman later, the Jackson Hawes catch, everything else. A lot of that was just Josh. It helps when your quarterback is putting the ball exactly where it needs to be at the exact speed in the exact right spot. And just the mastery that he achieved post-snap, pre-snap, but then also still having the escapability, like in the pocket mastery that he had. There's so many of those escapes that he has, just finding lanes that no other guys are going to find. The Josh Allen performance was the best in that fourth quarter specifically, is the best I've ever seen him. And there's been some really, really great Josh Allen performances. So I want to go to you, Carson. We'll go back around. What did you think of the Josh Allen performance? And just like, do you agree with me? Is that the best Josh Allen you've ever seen?
No, because the 13 seconds, Josh Allen was better. But
okay.
Other than that, I don't think I can think of a time where Josh was as good as he was. I mean, that was just heroic type of stuff. When you put up those type of numbers in the fourth quarter and your team's down like that and you spark, your team to get back and you end up winning that game, that's legendary stuff. That's going to be a game that will be talked about for years for this organization. He was just, you brought up pre-snap, phenomenal last night. He's starting to get into that crafty veteran type where, things, safety rotations, disguise coverages, those don't get him anymore. He's seen those before. He has the reps under his belt. He's playing the game at a high level. And we already know what he can do physically. So when you match those two together, it's a dangerous combination. And I saw that, especially in the fourth quarter last night. I thought the first half, again, I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit too, but the first half, it was like they were playing with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback as far as play calling was concerned. All easy, super simple stuff, almost game manager. It kind of confused me. I understand that they probably wanted to get the run game going, and that didn't really work out how they thought it would. But in the second half, when they let Josh off the leash, that's the Josh Allen we know and love, and even better than the one that we know and love too. So that was incredible stuff by him. Not single-handedly, but keeping up at the pace the Ravens were at, and a little bit more towards the end. That's just impressive stuff. I was thoroughly impressed. I think his best throw of the day, to be honest with you, came to Josh Palmer. Could not have asked for a better throw. He basically could have ran 30 yards down the field and handed it to him. And it was on the money, on time, great pre-snap read, post-snap, everything. And that's what you love to see out of your franchise guy. So when they got Josh, we've always said it, they always have a chance, but this one was for real.
Yeah, it's nice to finally win a game that, is considered probably the game of the year. And I don't know what game can top this. It was just absolutely incredible what Josh Allen was able to do. And kudos to the defense as well. Mike brought it up earlier, but they did get a 3-and-out on Lamar Jackson, used all their timeouts, and forced a fumble at Derrick Henry, which doesn't happen often. And we're able to get the ball back in Josh Allen's hands when it mattered. So that is good. But yeah, Josh was phenomenal. Carson mentioned the throw. I already did as well. The Palmer was insane. I want to shout out the pass catchers a little bit too. I thought Allen through 3 quarters was not like sugar high Josh, not like that bad, but I thought he missed a couple of guys. He was throwing it high. He wasn't really not settled in, but I just feel like he wasn't that comfortable. And the run game wasn't going like Carson had mentioned, but that fourth quarter, he just flipped the switch. And I really thought those pass catchers, James Cook, the yak he got on that play. I know Josh Allen obviously, read what the defense was doing, but still to break free from Roquan Smith and then hit the third level and then break another defender. He should have scored on that play. So that play by James Cook was great. I thought Kincaid, looked really well as a blocker too. I thought he was more intentional with his blocking, and that's something I know he had to work on. I thought Joshua Palmer in the second half was really good. Obviously, that catch comes to mind. Keon Coleman obviously came to life down the end there and looked like a whole different player than he did in the first half. And then Shakir does what he does. Obviously, would like to see him a little bit more involved. But overall, I thought the pass catcher showed up, in that second half, and I thought Josh Allen took advantage of it. I thought he played lights out. I thought he used his legs. When Dawkins got the false start, it didn't phase them. They had 0 timeouts. Even that first drive at the end of the half when they got the field goal was sensational by Josh to hit Kincaid. They do the clear out with the receivers on the left side. Kincaid gets open underneath with 1 second. They kick the field goal. That was huge. So all in all, spectacular performance. I put it up there with, the Lions games, the Rams games, and that throw by Palmer from him to Palmer, I would say was up there with that Cole Beasley Thanksgiving throw that I used to consider the best throw he's ever made. So yeah, phenomenal stuff.
Well, for me, it was a tale of 2 halves for Josh Allen. Obviously, he's doing all this great stuff in the second half and mostly in the fourth quarter, as we said before. But it was curious, as Carson touched on, and I'm going to just touch on right now. It was curious play calling from the start. Obviously, that first drive was pretty good. Codrington had a good, gave them good field possession at midfield. Ty had a great catch and run. Kincaid had a great touchdown catch. And then you get to the second position. So Ty returns it to the Buffalo 35. And then you have Cook running for 9. And then they proceed to run Cook not once, but twice and get stuffed on second and third and short. Now, this was a little, and I'm going to go off here. This is going to be a stat that Sneaky Joe had this morning about the Bills going for what they do on second and short. Since Joe Brady became offensive coordinator, the Bills on second and short, since last year essentially, have attempted 3 passes to 15 runs, and this is not including any goal line situations. They averaged 3.5 yards a carry, but not also 9 yards per pass. And including second and 2 ones, they have gone 7 passes to 25 runs. So they don't take their shots on second and 1, and it seems to be very curious why they don't. Getting back to the 2 drives in question, the next drive, Keon drops a screen pass, and then Kincaid on the very same screen pass, he catches it, but he gets stuffed at the line. He fortunately fumbles out of bounds, and they have to punt twice in a row. So it was just seemingly just conservative play calling on the Bills' part for most of the first half. They scored the other 3 times that they had the ball. Fortunately, 2 of them were field goals towards the end of the half. The second half, however, it seemed like the only people that could stop the Josh Allen experience wasn't the Ravens. It was somebody else. It was those over-officious jerks.
Hey, you over-officious jerk!
Because let's just get into it, because Josh Allen was stopped more than a few times by these people. All right, it's all in the second half here. It's amazing. The 2-point try after the Cook touchdown. Keon's catch was no good because he was ineligible because he got pushed out of bounds, which I believe was supposed to be illegal, but the officials either didn't catch that. And it was curious why I didn't necessarily see a Sean McDermott arguing that point. And there's been some debate. Well, was he really pushed out of bounds? Was it the momentum? He was pushed. He was contacted, and then he went out of bounds. To me, it's the Don Beebe play from the comeback way back when. He got pushed out of bounds. That's my contention until I go to the grave. Then there was an Allen scramble and throw to Shakir that was broken up. There was no pass interference called on Kyle Hamilton. I think he briefly got injured. Kyle Hamilton did on that play. You go to the next I think I had that play twice. All right. So then another drive after that, Allen slide on for that first down, where he slides for the first down, and he goes to slide right after he's passed it, and they say he was short. Drive ends in a punt. Then there's, of course, the 2-point try where Coleman catches that fade, which is broken up by Wiggins, but he's holding him. You could see him tearing at the front of his jersey, and no PI call on that. So I don't know what to think. Obviously, I don't believe that there's an officiating conspiracy against Josh Allen, but it's amazing that the Bills were able to score as much as they did in the second half, and Josh Allen was able to produce as much as they did in the fourth quarter with all that going against him. But how many times did we get – the Bills tweeted out, that graphic of Josh Allen, first time ever for a quarterback, first time ever in NFL history with Josh Allen's picture in it. So there's not much you can say that hasn't been already said about Josh Allen and his performance. And credit to the receivers for stepping up when the Bills finally decided to step into third gear or fourth gear and go into 2-minute offensive mode, which honestly I feel like they should be doing from the start. I think someone compared it to the Avengers and how they keep the Hulk in reserve until they really need him. Why don't you just lead with the Hulk next time? But anyway, I've said enough. Mike Bunt, what do you think about Josh Allen's performance and everything that happened around him?
So I'm going to just get to a few points here. I'm trying to get my thoughts straight, and then we'll see where the show goes after I'm done here.
Oh, boy.
Oh, God.
Bias punt.
No. I'll get to a few points first. First, everybody's talking about the conservative play calling and this and that and Joe Brady. What's he doing? Like, it boggles my mind. Yes, like the Bills opened things up, but the Ravens also started playing differently late in the fourth quarter too. It's not that the Bills just suddenly were like, oh, we're going to start getting big chunks of yardage down the field passing. The Ravens are up 15 points. They're playing more lax. And then they also stopped playing as aggressively on offense. The whole game, the Ravens offense was getting to the line quickly. They were snapping the ball. They were keeping the tempo up. They were tiring out the Bills' defense. And then late, they're killing clock. They're taking their time, giving the Bills more time to get ready. But the same thing happens with the Ravens defense. The Bills, the whole game, they're playing one version of Ravens defense, and then you're up 15. The Ravens are like, okay, we'll let them kill some clock. We'll let them pass a little bit. You're not thinking they're going to suddenly score 22 points in the fourth quarter and that your offense is going to have a 3-and-out and a turnover. They were thinking, let's just wind this clock down, and you get a little passive. So everybody that wants to think, oh, the Bills, what they did in the fourth quarter is how they should play offense all the time. That's not realistic. Like, and I hear this talk all the time, like it is. It's not. I mean, what bothers me a little bit when it comes to the Bills offense is our fan base consistently does this. At any sign of like failure or coming up short, we want to kill the coaches, kill Joe Brady. What are you doing running it on 2nd and 1 and 3rd and 1? The Bills offense has scored 40-plus points in 4 of their last 5 regular season games in which Josh Allen has played more than 1 snap. And they've scored 30-plus points in 10 of the last 11 regular season games in which Josh Allen has played more than 1 snap. And they've scored 30-plus in 14 of the last 17 games in which Josh Allen has played 1 snap. The problem is not the offense. And if anybody thinks the play caller is an idiot, they're an idiot. Like, it's 2nd and 1. You run the ball, and if you don't get it, like, shame on the offensive line. Yes, I would love to take more shots on 2nd and 1 and go for an explosive play. But it's not like the Bills aren't scoring. They're leading the NFL in scoring during this span of games. 3rd and 1, they get blown up. The offensive line didn't do their job. You expect them to execute in that situation. Back in the day, that's called old school football. Do your job. Block for the running back. Don't get blown up. Come on. Don't blame that on the coach. Blame that on the players. I get sick and tired of it. And then we talk about screens. Why do they do all these wide receiver screens? You know what? Nobody cared about the wide receiver screens to John Brown back in the day when he would break them for touchdowns. Nobody's complaining about the Baltimore wide receiver screen that ended up in a 25-yard touchdown. Why? Because they executed it. They did what they were supposed to. The block happened. The timing happened. Nobody talks about how Josh Allen's pass to Dalton Kincaid on the wide receiver screen was absolutely abysmal and off the mark. Like these coaches spend countless hours week by week watching the last 3-4 games of a team's film to get on tendencies and what they're doing and try to John, you know, my face is red even when I'm happy, man. So this I might have a skin condition or something. But the point of it being, like, they're spending countless times breaking down the Ravens defense, trying to figure out where there's vulnerabilities. And they're also trying to think about a game setting situation. Like, we don't want Lamar to be on the field for forever. We don't want this game to be 55-52. As it was, think about how conservative they were early, and this game still ended up 41-40. Think about if they weren't that way early. This game might have ended up in the 50s, for crying out loud. So, yes, I would love to see the Bills offense more aggressive, but let's not forget what got them here. James Cook and relying on the running game last year is how they became a 30-plus point a game offense. It's how they ended up with their best record of the Sean McDermott era and the closest they've gotten to a Super Bowl during Josh Allen's time in Buffalo. And just because we love passing games, just because we love lighting it up, doesn't mean that's always the right play. And the baffling part is a lot of people that keep saying light it up with Josh Allen, they're the ones that say Bills have shit receivers. So what is it? If the Bills have crap receivers, why are you trying to light it up more in the air? That's literally contradicts itself. That's lacking common sense. So I just want some people to have a logical argument and tell me something rational instead of just complaining for the sake of complaining. And then the last point I'm going to say about the defense. And I want to start this conversation about the defense, Jake, so I'm sorry for kind of taking over right now.
You're good.
Because I know you guys all have opinions. The defense was bad on Sunday night. It was really bad, like atrociously bad. And if that's the defense that we get in the playoffs against elite quarterbacks like Mahomes, Jackson, Burrow, so forth, they'll lose in the playoffs again. But what I will say that's probably going to surprise you guys is that I'm not too concerned about the defense because I don't think 90% of offenses in the NFL can do what Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry do, where you have the fastest quarterback in the league who can run a 4.3. You have a Zay Flowers that's a dynamic receiver. But then at the other point, you have a running back like Derrick Henry who can literally run over you, but yet has the speed to the outside to outrun safeties. You have to, in the NFL, often decide defensively, are we going to be a small defense that focuses on speed and stopping the pass, or are we going to be a big defense that is built on stopping the run? When you play the Ravens, you are put in a bind where no matter what decision you make, they have an answer to defeat you. And if people watch the Ravens and they watch Lamar on a week-to-week basis like I do, the Ravens do this to almost everyone. Not 40 points, but like the Ravens do to other teams what the Bills and Josh Allen do to other teams. So we have to not look at it as like, oh, the Bills defense, they're horrible, they're horrible. When the Bills go up against an elite defense, what do you expect? You expect Josh Allen to still dominate because he's Josh Allen. Well, that's what the Ravens fans and the Ravens expect when they go up against everybody. At the end of the day, they need to get better. I expect them to. And we're lucky that in the big moment, they came up with 3 stops in a row, because the probability of that, if the probability of the Bills winning the game was 1%, the probability of the Bills getting 3 stops in a row against the Ravens had to be like even less than that, it felt like, at that moment in time. But that's what I got to say. Rant over.
Just a couple things before I move to the defensive side of the ball. And the biggest thing is I hear you with the run game and the play calling and everything else with the first half offense and the conservative, and like, hey, you go get a yard. Like, if you can run a yard on 2nd and 1. I personally, it's like against my football tenets to run on 2nd and 1. So it's just going to always be a personal thing that just really, really bothers me, because it's like, hey, if you think you can run on 2nd and 1, you can probably run it on 3rd and 1 too. But Joe Brady, look at all the 2-point plays. This dude doesn't know how to script a passing play for 2 yards. Like, I think that's my biggest issue, is that I've seen it for a year now that they can't do. I don't think they have a play that they can do for 2 yards that he trusts. He's running them into the line. Bro,
that's such a cold take.
And you have Josh Allen at quarterback, Jake. Like, how? Like,
let him do something with the ball on the short yardage plays, bro.
Early in the season,
don't take the ball out of his hands. That's all.
The fade is horrible on 2-point conversion. That was horrible. I agree, but they love the mesh concept. And to your point, I think teams are starting to catch on to it. The orbit bubble. You have guys come across the field, and they do this better than any other team in the NFL these past few years when it comes to their mesh concepts and getting guys open in that short situation. However, I do agree that teams are starting to probably catch on to that, along with the fact that a goal line fade to Keon Coleman when you're looking to tie the game, like, that's the best we got. Come on, that's terrible. But I disagree with you at the core of that statement, but I can see where you're coming from.
They love. I will disagree on the fade too, because we know that Josh and Keon love that fade, and we saw a million videos of it. And Josh inherently trusts that ball no matter what. If the quarterback trusts it and trusts the receiver, that's what he's going to go to, and it worked about the same as all the other ones that they did. But I digress. I'm not trying to get into a full conversation about the short yardage offense. I do think, Carson, from watching that game back last night, the Ravens definitely caught on to what the Bills wanted to do in the short passing game. Like, everything. There was the middle of the field, the drags, everything across the middle, like the short, even the sticks, like going little hitches, all that was gone. Those guys were locked up immediately, and the only options Allen had on the field was whoever the deep option was, or scrambling around and finding somebody. And it worked a couple times in there. There is the one play that, and I'm gonna and I watched it back. The second, I don't know if it was the 2nd or 3rd down on the run on the first drive, but Keon Coleman. And we can talk about Keon Coleman, his play in the first half a little bit.
You got it. That should be the topic. Then defense.
The corner that he should have blocked runs right past Keon and makes the tackle, and Keon kind of just jogs up to the safety and puts his hands on him. It's one of the worst reps I've ever seen from a wide receiver blocking. So some of it does have to do with execution, but I'd like to be a little more creative than just mesh or a run up the middle on 2nd and 1. That's all I'm saying. It's on play action. I don't think there was enough play action rollouts, like play action boots. I know AJ was talking about that last week, even before the season. Like, there's other ways that they can get that moving, but that's one thing. Defensively, we have to talk about good things defensively first before we get into the rest of the bad things, because Mike Bunt, you said that you were surprised that they got 3 stops. The reason they got 3 stops is because Ed Oliver was the best player on the field defensively, and he ripped the ball out of Derrick Henry's hands to get that turnover. And the play of Ed Oliver, and honestly, I don't know how you guys feel about it. Maybe Joey Bosa in the run game, not as impressive, but the push he was getting, he was pushing guys back into Lamar. When the defensive line was able to straight rush Lamar on a drop back situation, they were getting in his face. They were pushing the pocket around. And Lamar was still efficient. He was still solid because that's what Lamar Jackson does. But they were able to do it. Now, the one negative I will say about the run defense and why I do think this is a trend beyond not just the Ravens specifically, but with Derrick Henry, because I did some research right after the game because I was arguing with my brother about this stat. First, Derrick Henry's average rushing yards against teams, it goes Texans, Jaguars, Bills. He has 105, averages 105 yards, I think, against it was Titans, Jaguars, Texans. Why am I saying Titans? Texans, 105.2. It was like 104.6 against the Jags, and then it was like 104 yards per game against the Bills, third highest in his career. So they have always had issues with Henry specifically. It probably has to do with the lighter defense and the way that they run that, because you need some big boys to take him down. We saw it. I'll pour one out for Cole Bishop and my belief in Cole Bishop after week one of the most pitiful tackle attempts on Derrick Henry I've ever seen. But that guy presents problems for the Bills a lot, no matter what. But we have to talk about Ed Oliver and the good signs, because I really think the defensive line showed some positive signs in there, even if it wasn't the cleanest game.
For sure. I think, you brought up a good point. Ed Oliver, he's a guy who took a little bit of a step back last year. Let's just be honest with ourselves. But to see him come out and take over a game, it was refreshing, because 2 years ago when he was in for that big contract deal, he was left and right. He was an absolute beast all year long. And for him to come out and maybe play his best game as a pro in the biggest of moments, phenomenal to see right off the jump. And then I saw a film breakdown. I forgot exactly who it was, but the Ravens were intentionally running away from Eddie for a majority of the football game. Mm-hmm. And then finally, Ed's like, I'm just going to shoot inside. I think that was probably an adjustment from the defensive line coach. Pair that with Babich and ultimately probably McDermott as well. But it was just a phenomenal game from him. You couldn't ask for much more without Ed Oliver. I don't think you win this football game. I think a lot of people would probably agree with that statement. Joey Bosa, he looked rough in the run game, but eventually he started to make some adjustments. He's an older guy. I mean, hey, what can you really expect? I thought Greg Rousseau had an underrated game as well. There was numerous times I thought he got in the backfield in the passing game. And then he's also a guy who's typically very good against setting the edge. But after that, I was thoroughly disappointed. I thought TJ Sanders played a horrific game. I think it was maybe Greg Vorse who put it up on Twitter today for the touchdowns that the Ravens scored. He was out there for, and I believe Deion Walker didn't come in too much better either. So, hey, what are you going to do? Those guys are rookies. They're a little bit wet behind the ears still. So I expect them to be better. Bunt, you touched on it. The Ravens, this is how they play the game of football. Like, no matter who they play against, they're just going to dominate you one way or another. So they're a really difficult team to stop, but it's got to be better than that. So overall, though, I thought there were some good things, not as bad as what a lot of people think. Like you said, Jake, we got to stick to the good first. So I did like what we saw from a few people in the defense.
Yeah, not too much to add positively. Ed Oliver, like Carson said, did a really good job for them. I thought he just caused havoc, whether it was a tackle for loss or, pushing the pocket or, getting that sack, that nice sack. I mean, that was huge. And, that was really important for, forcing a field goal there. Thank God they didn't answer with a touchdown. And then obviously that 2nd and 1, the 2 inside handoffs, which were vanilla. And I would have liked to see some creativity there, to Partham's point earlier. And then obviously they had to punt there. And I think that was really the turning point for me in that game, was that 2nd and 1 sequence where they didn't get it and they had to punt. I just hated it at that point. But again, they won. But yeah, defensively, Ed played really well. I thought Bosa, pass rush wise, and honestly, the whole defensive line I thought looked good. Now there were guys wide open over the field because Cole Bishop and Taylor Rapp looked atrocious back there. But that, because Lamar was getting it out so quick, those shallow drag routes to Zay Flowers, there was no one even within, 20 yards sometimes when he was catching those balls in the secondary. So Lamar was able to get out quick, regardless of how good the defensive line looked. So I think the secondary for me and the linebacker play was definitely something to be concerned with. And I do get the points about it's Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, and they're a great offense, and not a lot of teams can stop them. But I have seen defenses stop them. I've seen Steve Spagnuolo stop them. I've seen the Cincinnati Bengals stop them. But that 90%, yes, that's great. Your 90% of teams aren't like that, but that 10%, those are the teams you're going to see in January, and that 10% is the games that matter. So while you can sit here and say that the 90%, that's a great thing because next week Justin Fields and Breece Hall, it's kind of I saw a comment today, it was at the Temu Ravens, like they're kind of just like Justin Fields is a lesser version of Lamar, Breece Hall is kind of like a lesser version of Derrick Henry, which to their point, I thought they played really well, but it is still a way lesser version of Baltimore. But for a first test, they passed it because they did get it done when it mattered, and I thought that was huge, and that's going to be a huge momentum builder mentally for that team, that defense. I think that's something they can build on. But again, that secondary to me is just not where I want it to be. And Taron Johnson wasn't out there as often as I thought either. They used a lot of Dorian Williams and 3 linebacker sets. They tried to, get bigger up front. I thought Dorian actually played the best out of all the linebackers on the field, in my opinion. I thought he was flying around. I know he had more tackles. Bernard only had like two solo tackles. I know it's box score stats, Carson, but that's really what I was going off of there.
All good, AJ. Nothing for you.
I thought Dorian looked good. But yeah, the secondary to me still with Bishop and Rapp back there. I would have loved to see Jabril Peppers. I don't know if you can get more out of DeMar Hamlin if he limits Taylor Rapp's mistakes. I saw a tweet. I forgot who tweeted it, but I don't know if like Cole Bishop and Taylor Rapp aren't meshing right now. And I know it's still early, but I think they do need to find an answer because that 10%, those teams within 10% that they're going to play are going to be the teams they see in January when it matters. And the defense needs to play better if they want to get it done.
Yeah, and if they're going to get better, they're not going to get it from Jabril Peppers, who's signed with the Steelers today, I do believe. So everybody was throwing that name out yesterday and today. You can go find guys like Yards Per Pass in their all 22 breakdowns as far as what's going on with the safeties. I want to touch on some of the defensive line, and Ed Oliver in particular, of course. First drive, he gets a sack on 3rd down for -15. I believe Lamar actually cut his hand on that throwing play. I think he also got knocked for a loop by Ed Oliver, I think in the second half in one of those later drives. Said the one where he said he was cramping and he didn't have confidence in going for it on 4th down, and that was believe that was an Ed Oliver hit there. As far as Bosa goes, there was on the second Ravens offensive drive, Lamar ran, I think it was an option play, and he ran wide to the left side for 17 yards, and Bosa didn't stay inside and keep contained. So that was something where he had to learn. And he was actually in the last drive the Ravens had before the half, forces a fumble. Bosa did for a tackle for loss on 15. They didn't get the fumble, obviously, but it was a big backwards play. And Bosa was able to contain Lamar in that drive before they kicked the field goal on 3rd down, which was a big play in that sense. I think I don't know if Bosa had any big plays in the second half, but Ed Oliver did stuff Henry for a loss at one point, and then, of course, he basically had the turning point of the game, forcing Derrick Henry to fumble. So good games all around, I guess, from Ed Oliver and Joey Bosa for the first time. And, of course, they're going against an elite team that not many other teams can match the 1-2 firepower of a running quarterback and a big running back like Derrick Henry. And I like that point about the Temu Ravens being the Jets next week. So it's going to be a little bit of a come down, but a little bit of a familiar feel when they go against New York. I just hope that they can settle down in the secondary and find some answers, especially when Trade White comes back from injury. Bunt, what was your thoughts on the defense?
Like I said, ugly, but they came up big when it mattered. We all talked about that, Oliver. Great game. Sounds like the rookie struggled pretty badly. TJ Sanders was on the field. The last 8 snaps he had, 4 touchdowns were scored. So probably not the best performance by TJ Sanders. Don't want to say it's all his fault. I didn't watch the film, so I don't know what he was doing, if he contributed to it. Doesn't sound good. Overall, Daquan doesn't look like the guy that we grew to love 2-3 years ago. Looks like he might be towards the end. Joey Bosa had some good moments, but he also had some bad moments in contain. You're going up against Lamar Jackson. You have to be patient. You have to make sure that your eyes are in the right spot. And a few times he was a little over aggressive. That's going to happen to most defensive ends against Lamar Jackson, but still, secondary wise, it's so hard to judge because, every time I watch the Ravens, they look like this. And I know, AJ, you're right. Like there are teams that have slowed down the Ravens, including the Bills before in the past, but you kind of have to pick your poison with them. if we're being real too, it doesn't help that both the Bills safeties were absolutely abysmal in this game. So that's going to be a concern. Now we know Taylor Rapp can take his game to a certain level, but Taylor Rapp is an average starting safety, and if you want to say that, probably on the lower end. And Cole Bishop, it's all about potential, and who knows? Maybe things get better once the Bills get some guys back. Like when Trey's back at corner or Maxwell Hairston later in the season, when you have Michael Hoyt to the defensive end rotation, you have Ogunjobi back, D tackle, like just to be a guy so you don't have to put a rookie who might not be ready for that moment. There's a lot of things that are going to change. And the Bills aren't going to face an offense like the Ravens the entire rest of the season. Like I know we said the Jets, like Justin Fields, like show me you can actually like throw the ball consistently for like a 4-quarter game before like I actually like think you're like a good quarterback. Like I'm not comparing Justin Fields to the 2-time MVP Lamar Jackson. He's a wannabe Lamar Jackson. Watch him like light up the Bills this week. That would be just...
And Breece Hall looked like, I'm sorry.
The Jets remember they had Breece Hall.
Yeah, like Breece Hall looked pre-ACL injury yesterday.
But
yeah,
He looks phenomenal.
He really did.
But yeah, like defensively, like we got a stretch of 6 games here. The Jets, Miami, Patriots, Saints, Atlanta. Like none of these teams should be lighting up the Bills defense each week. Now, will the Bills have bad games during that stretch defensively? Probably. But if the Bills are allowing like 25 points each of these weeks to like the New Orleans Saints and to the New England Patriots, then I'm going to be like, okay, they suck. Like, but at this point in time, I'm not at they suck. They allowed a lot of points against an elite level offense. If they continue to do that against bad offenses, I'll move on. But definitely not good when the narratives going to the season are all that they're going to look horrible, and then it kind of matches up to that. But we'll have to see. And to kind of transfer it back to you, Jake, I know before this, you wanted to talk Keon. Carson wants to talk Keon. I'm sure Mike, AJ, you guys probably want to talk Keon. We got to talk about the receivers at some point in the show. And we got to talk about, were they the problem the first 3 quarters? What was the situation? Because nothing happened for 3 quarters, and then they light it up in the 4th. I'll let you take it over, Jake. You started out. We can go around the horn.
All right, yeah. So I'll get to Keon and the receivers in a second. I want one last thing about the safeties, because what I did notice watching all 22 and everything, especially in the first half, is whatever you want to talk about the play and everything. Like there's a lot we obviously don't know the calls. We don't know what their actual responsibilities are going to be. So I'm not going to try to like judge that specifically. What I can tell you is it looked like they were not communicating. Like there was a lot of franticness going on, honestly, all the way through the game. A lot of Bernard checking with the safeties and then Ben being like, what's going on? Like especially from Cole Bishop. Like, and to talk about the comedy of it all, it didn't look like it from Dorian Strong. Like Dorian Strong looked like, and it's different roles. They have different responsibilities. The safeties are going to be working in tandem with the linebackers, especially with the way that they do this and everything. But it just looked like people were confused a lot pre-snap. And maybe it was Lamar. They're talking about it on the broadcast. Lamar has a lot more freedom at the line to kind of change things around this year. And that's a big thing they wanted to talk about. It's Lamar 3.0. They were hyping it up over and over again. And maybe he was putting them into positions where the Bills were trying to chase him around the whole time. But the communication looked poor. And when you see that kind of poor communication, and after having training camp and everything else, that's what's gonna hold back a Cole Bishop. Like we talked about him all summer being a guy who needs to play on instincts and not be processing. It didn't look like he was playing on instincts. So that's the last thing I'll say about the safeties as much as anything else. About the receivers, honestly, I want to start with Carson. I want to hear Carson's full
stir it up,
baby. Here, because I do think I'll just to jump off a little bit. I do think the first half, nobody was open down the field. Nobody was open down the field. But I want to give credit to the Ravens on there too, with the way they were playing the Bills and everything else. But I want to hear Carson's thoughts
before we give it to Carson, can we also admit Carson is a very positive person when it comes to the Bills and their receivers, and he's very high in their receiver room and what they bring to the table. So let's just hear what he has to say, because I'm expecting to have some positivity here after a game in which their quarterback threw for 394 yards. Right, Carson?
Oh, well, I feel there's going to be probably at least one of you guys that disagree with me with this, but put a tweet out, I think maybe, I don't know, mid-third quarter that said we got to have a talk about Keon Coleman. Well, here we are, right? Of course, after that, that's when he decides to wake up. So he makes me look real good. But I'll say this. If you look at the box score, and there's a lot of people that look at the box score, he had a good game. I want to start also by saying the jury's still out on Keon Coleman. 1 year is rookie year, and 1 game into his sophomore year does not reflect on the player that he can and will be. But I think it's going to be really important to say the film shows he played a bad game. Jake, you brought it up. He missed a run block. He typically, I'll give him credit, he's actually a pretty decent run blocker. He's a guy who rarely half-asses. So for him to miss a few blocks, that's a tell to begin with. Josh Allen tried fight for his life in the first and second half and the runaround drill, right? You're downfield, you come back to the quarterback. If you're short, you go down the field. What I saw from Keon on 2 to 3 of those was, for lack of a better term, fucking horrible. It was terrible. He was downfield. He just sits on the sidelines, doesn't move at all. And then he's short. He starts jogging. He's never going to – we know this about him. He's never going to run past the defender. To me, that was a half-ass play. That just can't happen. Separation, I still have my concerns about. You're never going to fix that. Hopefully he watched a little bit of Mike Evans tape because that's about the only way around that. And then to also pair with this, you're a 50-50 guy. I get he got mauled at the end. Be the 50-50 guy. Come down with that football. There's no excuse. The ball hit your hands. I know he made a great play down the sidelines. Josh throws that in the turkey hole on the money. Keon goes up and gets it. That I'm really thrilled about. But the touchdown, some nonsense like that, some luck, that right there is another 20 yards added to you box score lovers, and he catches the touchdown. You take that away. First of all, the Bills lose. I'll give him credit for that. It's a huge catch. I remember Charles Clay had a similar type of play back against Miami where the ball is a little low like that and goes right through his chest and into the ground, and the Bills lose. But I'll give him credit where it's due in that sense. But to me, the people that are being like, oh, it's Keon Coleman, here comes the second-year step, like this is the biggest development, because there are people that are out there that are saying, like, this is the best game he's played. I don't see that. I think he was a box score type of wonder. I think he's going to be a guy who I'm still, I don't want to say I've given up on him, but he's a guy who's going to put up 850, 900 yards this year, maybe, max. But for the people out there saying that he was tremendous in this game, I cannot agree with that. That was not his best game by any means. He made a few plays down the stretch when it came up most. And Jake, I know we had our fair share of texts back and forth. Maybe he's that type of guy. He's a sporadic type of player who will get you a few plays, but other than that, he goes radio silent for the rest of the game. But I'll hand it over to you guys. I don't know. Something about how he played. I didn't think he played well, and for him to get all the praise, good for him. But I think it's false praise.
Well, Carson, let me ask you specifically, did you see any difference in his play between the first and the second half? Because I got the breakdown here. 3 targets on Keon Coleman first half, 1 catch, 17 yards. Second half, 8 targets for 7 catches, 95 yards and a touchdown. And obviously there was a little bit of luck and dumb luck, should we say. But great presence of mind of Keon to see that ball where it was going and bring it in. But did you see any difference in his route running, his effort, his coming back for the ball, et cetera?
Actually,
second half to first half.
No, because Bunt brought this point up earlier. Reminder that halfway, almost towards the end of the third quarter, he was still a nothing burger. So to me, it was when the Baltimore Ravens decided to get a little stupid and play way too passive and let the Bills back in the game offensively. Not necessarily let them back in, but you understand what I'm saying. They're playing a little bit more of a prevent type of shell. I know Keon started picking up a few yards on, an out route, a 12 to 10 curl. So those type of plays. So maybe he played a little bit better, like in the fourth quarter. Congratulations. But I think it was more a product of the defense allowing that happen in the down and distance and situational type of stuff.
Yeah. When I was walking out of the stadium, I'm telling my buddy, it was like about 6 minutes. And I was like, man, this is our last memory inside this place. Like as a home opener. And, we're all ticked off. And I'm like, we just need more. Like they signed Palmer to $12 million deal. Over 3 years. They extended Shakir and they had Coleman at the time. And right in that moment with like 6 minutes or whatever it was, 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, I was like, they need more from their top 3. because they've invested so heavily. Essentially, a first-round pick in Coleman, and then over $10 million. And then they obviously Curtis Samuel was an inactive. Elijah Moore, it was absolutely nothing burger. He got one end around. It didn't really do much. But I think this wide receiver room, it was very concerning in the first half. Now I am happy. Same thing like with the defense. Like they did show up when it mattered, which is really important, I think, for a unit to gel. And it is the first game, and there's a lot of moving pieces there with Palmer adding into the mix and what they're trying to do. And Shakir hasn't seen many reps in preseason or training camp because of that high ankle sprain. But yeah, I can't talk about Keon's effort because I wasn't really too focused on it. But I will say, like, I was of the belief with 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, like they do need more from their top three because they weren't getting up and down the field. Allen was having to do, his hero scrambling stuff. And I wasn't really impressed until, that last drive where Palmer came down with the big play and, Shakir got involved a little bit and obviously Coleman down the stretch there. But it was for 3 quarters underwhelming for the receivers. I mean, the first 5 catches, I think, of the game were, I think it was Knox Kincaid and I think Ty Johnson. Like, I don't even think a receiver caught the ball until like maybe the second. It took a while. So that is a concern to me. But again, they scored 41 points. They figured it out when it mattered. And those 3 players that I mentioned did show up on that final drive in that fourth quarter.
I'll let you go, Partham. I need to be the last one on this because I just have some thoughts.
Not much I can add to that. I just hope we can get these guys some separation. I mean, obviously, someone was showing 2 or 3 routes where Keon had at least 2 or 3 yard separation. We were talking about it beforehand. So it seems like it's not impossible for him to do that. But I would prefer the offense, especially a Josh Allen offense, to dictate to the defense and not just let's go to, the running game and Josh Allen scrambling and James Cook for 2 or 3 yard gains on second and short. I would rather Josh Allen dictate to the defense rather than us have to rely on a short running game and a short passing game and wait for them to start backing off, and then Josh Allen can go into Superman mode. But what you can go off punt because we can score 30 and 40 per game, but if half of it's going to come at the end of the fourth quarter, it's going to be nail biters every time we go up against a
your
not
defense
a superior team, but an equal team.
Yeah.
I just want to reiterate the last 11 games the Bills have played outside of the finale against New England last year. The Bills are averaging 35 points a game. So I just want to say anybody who questions anything about this offense right now is living in fantasy world. That isn't reality because 35 points a game is what you see like the top programs in like college football average. And college football is a totally different game than NFL. I just think it's a lot of crazy talk. And I'll be real. I think a lot of it is generated from some local media people that get way too much power and influence over the rest of the fan base. Not every team has star receivers. Would I love one? Yes. Do I want a Jamar Chase on our team? Yes. But you know what a Jamar Chase gets? He gets $40 million a year. And the Bills, we talked about how the Jets and Justin Fields, and they're the Temu version of Lamar Jackson. Well, the Bills have the Temu version of a receiving core. And that's what they got right now. But we talk about how the defense isn't good enough. Well, that's why they keep investing in the defense. They're trying to make sure the defense is good enough. Because with Josh Allen at quarterback, it doesn't really matter if you have an all-pro receiver. It doesn't really matter if you have the best surrounding cast. They're still scoring 35 points a game, which at the end of the day is all that matters. They're winning games. They're advancing to the AFC Championship. Now, do they have to win the big one? Yes. But we'll see what happens. This is the problem I have. You're absolutely right, Carson. Keon Coleman was non-existent in the first half. He was lackadaisical in certain areas. Does he have room to improve on a lot of things? Yes. He's also a guy that was a second-round pick 1 year ago who's entering his second year in the league and had a rough end to last year. Do I expect Keon Coleman to be a great player this year for the Bills? No, I don't, because most second-year players have things they're still working on. You look at Khalil Shakir. He's probably their number 1 volume receiver. He's coming off a high ankle sprain, missed all of the preseason, just returned to practice a week ago, probably isn't fully 100%, or even if he is still building up some of that continuity after being out for a month. Josh Palmer, first game with the Bills, new team, new squad, finding out his role. Now, I loved when you said, AJ, we need more, because for a second, I thought you were talking about Elijah Moore, because he does nothing on this team, which is what I said he was going to be doing the entire offseason. So I'm glad I was right about that one. what I really could use is maybe a little Curtis Samuel. Like, can we get him in a game, please? Because what?
he can't get healthy.
Well, like, I mean, what he's supposed to do is something that might help with the short passing game and some of that stuff. Like getting Timu Elijah Moore to do it isn't really helping. So let's try to get Curtis Samuel to do what we brought him in for. That would be nice. But at the end of the day, I get a little upset. I get the separation, like points. Like they don't get a lot of separation. But I feel like some of this is also like the same stuff we were talking about Gabe Davis. People talked about how Gabe Davis doesn't get separation. But then like I have a million advanced metrics that show Gabe Davis's separation numbers versus his peers that were elite players in the league. And his separation numbers really weren't that far off. Like some of us have to like come to the reality of this is the National Football League. Separation in the National Football League is not the same as college. Guys aren't running wide open. Now, like some teams they are, but a lot of times when you see somebody that's 3-4 yards wide open, that's normally more scheme related or a master play call than it is a receiver just getting a ton of separation. And if it is a ton of separation, it's an elite guy, which you're not normally going to get a lot of elite guys when you have your money allocated in other areas. So this is what I'll say about the unit. Do I think they're a great unit? No, I don't. Do I think they're a bottom 10 unit? No, I don't. I think, AJ, I see you're shaking your head, but like
I think they are. I was just nodding my head.
Here's the bottom line. And if I'm way wrong about this, like call me out at the end of the year, but I have a feeling I'm not going to be. Keon Coleman's going to probably get 50 to 60 balls this year. Like now, I said 45 to 55 before the season for like 800. You get 120 in the first game of the season. He's going to be a 50 to 60 catch guy. He's going to get around 800 to 900 yards. Josh Palmer is going to be a 45 to 55 catch guy for 700 plus yards. Khalil Shakir is going to get 80 for 800 plus yards. And you're going to get, let's be real, Dalton Kincaid. That was a step up from what we saw last season. That was a much better version of Dalton Kincaid. So, like, we can act like these guys stink, but this is the collection of talent they put together because they want specific things out of them. Separation is only one way to make plays. And I think fans get all, like, they're all about it. We need separators. We need separators. This. That's why fans thought Elijah Moore was going to be a dynamic player. Well, what does Elijah Moore do to this offense? Not much. Curtis Samuel gets separation. What has he done in this offense? Not much. Josh Allen has just as much say in the type of players they're bringing in as anybody else in that building. Every week, the quarterback sits down with the head coach. They go in the offensive coordinator, and they go over what they want to do game plan. So when we're seeing wide receiver screens, when we're seeing short passes, that is as much Josh Allen saying this is what he thinks is the way to beat this team as anybody else on that staff. When they bring in Keon Coleman, that's because Josh Allen is telling general manager, I need a guy I can throw the ball to in a tight window who's just going to go up and make that catch. Because you know what the thing about separators are? They're not always getting separation every time. So if they're not going to get separation, you need somebody with other skill sets that can help you out. You need guys that sometimes you can get a short pass and they can do stuff with it yards after the catch. That's what a Shakir does. You need guys that can go up and get a contested catch. You need a third receiver like Josh Palmer who is steady, reliable, and can put up numbers. Nobody's going to say these guys are all pros, but like we act like these guys suck. And it's crazy. Even Dawson Knox, I thought he was toast. I guess he's not toast either right now. Like he made some nice plays. If we were talking about Jackson Hawes, we'd say the guy has no hands going into the season. We'd say he's a blocking only tight end. He makes a huge play late in the game. So like these narratives don't line up with reality. If the difference between like say this is a separator and then this is not a separator, like you're talking about like a narrow gap. And then with that narrow gap, I'm going to take a guy like Keon Coleman. I told AJ before the draft last year, I liked Keon Coleman. He wouldn't have been my pick, but I liked him. And it's because he has a unique skill set that you don't see in a lot of players in the NFL. He's tall. He's lengthy. He has the ability to make contested catches. He has the ability to do things with the ball after the catch. Like, this unit is never going to be unbelievable. But fans need to relax because, like, this is what it is. Coleman's under contract this year and 2 more years. You got Khalil Shakir under contract for 4 years. You got Josh Palmer under contract for 3 years. You have Dalton Kincaid the next 2 you have Dalton Kincaid next year, and then you're going to have the option. So, like, for all the people that are like, this group stinks, like, what are we going to do? It's going to be the same guys the next 2 years. So just grow to like it because this is what Josh Allen
Over it.
and Sean McDermott put together. So if you think that they're stupid and that they put together a bad collection of talent, then realize you're basically calling your quarterback, your head coach, and your general manager a bunch of idiots. And that's all I'm going to say. Because nobody wants to ever say that Josh Allen is a decision maker on this team. But he is.
Absolutely.
Josh Allen is just as responsible for this collection of talent as Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane. He might not directly be scouting him. He might not directly be saying, take this guy. But he is telling Sean McDermott what he wants as a skill set. And then Sean McDermott is relaying that stuff to Brandon Beane. And that's how the Bills are constructing their roster.
I just want to say one thing, not to dwell on the separation aspect of it all. Stephen O'Rourke from, was it Fantasy Points, where Ian was pointing out 2 or 3 plays that Keon Coleman was getting good separation despite the bad advanced metrics about Keon's separation. I'll spare you the details on all 3 plays, but he sums it up as basically saying on these 3 plays, Coleman has raw separation, but none of the separation was earned by Coleman. It was all given up by the defense. So take that for what you will.
That's a fair point, too.
And Ian compliments on that nuanced response as well.
Real quick, I just want to touch on something. This is nothing. First of all,
I
wasn't talking.
I'm not calling you out.
No, I know. I just want to clarify because there's people that occasionally take things that I say and run with it, which I want to clarify. I'm fine with the wide receiver group we have. I also have nothing personal against Keon Coleman. I think, I hope he breaks out. I hope he goes for 1,600 yards, turns into prime Julio Jones, ends up with a Hall of Fame career, you name it, because that chain that he was wearing was – we talked about the chains, Jake. They were on display last night. But anyway.
That was a hefty
separation argument, I'm not worried about that because, like you said, Mike, there's prototypical players who have different type of attributes. Like guys do different. That's what made the wide receiver group last year for the Bills so special. Each player was different. Matt Collins was your guy who can block, and he did that role phenomenally well. Then you had guys, Curtis Samuel towards the end of the year. He was your guy who could take the top off the defense a little bit, while also being a guy yards after catch wise. And then Shakir was Mr. Do It All, you name it, right? But for me, it's just he something about the people that say he had such a great game. He came up clutch when it mattered most. Can't take that away from him. That's a really, really good thing. But the people that are acting like, oh, this is going to be, he played so well, it's just not the case. He just didn't. The numbers are one thing, but, the film, I think, shows another thing. It's like CeeDee Lamb, for example, the other night had 3-4 terrible drops, but still he's going to look elite on the stat sheet. It's just I put it more under a microscope, I think, than just the box score stats, because those can be extremely misleading. And that is my number one point. Like, I hope Keon turns out well. Nothing against him. It's just I think there's some people out there that are very misconstrued in how they're viewing and evaluating the wide receiver position.
Hey,
Jay Spence, what up, man? How's it going?
What up, Spence?
And I got one response to that.
I got to say something too, by the way.
Okay, but get him in.
I'll let
AJ, go ahead.
So I was gonna say, like, in my stance, I got them having a bottom 10 wide receiver room on paper because they do. That is a fact. I'm okay with that. And that's where I think like it's also could be misconstrued. Like I can say that, but also say like I think with Josh Allen, the run game they have, the offensive line they have, that is okay. Like they're still gonna have like Josh Allen threw for 394 yards last night. Like that's probably not expected, but that can still happen with this collection of players, right? So like while they have on paper a bottom 10 wide receiver unit, in my opinion, and they don't have many proven really commodities. Khalil Shakir is probably the most proven. Palmer has potential. Coleman obviously has the potential too. I can say in the same sentence, like it's okay that they have a bottom 10 wide receiver group. Like I know there's a lack of talent there. Like it's more about philosophically than anything. Teams build differently. the Bills philosophically are not like focused on getting a wide receiver one or this alpha receiver. They tried it with Diggs. It didn't work. But there's people that do believe that works. So that's why, like, when Mike says, like, just get over it, or like whatever you said about like just like do it. No, you don't have to get over it. I'm telling you don't have to get over it, because teams, if you philosophically believe you need an alpha wide receiver to get it done, which historically is the case, right? Then that you can feel that way. So I think it's more philosophically. We can argue about where they're ranked or whatever the case may be. They're going to be an elite offense regardless of what they have. But the fact still remains, philosophically, they have not gotten the big name, and people can disagree with that, and that's okay. And whatever, you can call out the coach or whoever's hands in the jar or responsibility for why that's not the case. But the fact of the matter is, it's going to be okay because they have Josh Allen, they have a run game, offensive line, all that taken care of.
I don't agree with you on that. Did not had the big name. They had Stephon Diggs for 4 years.
No, I'm saying, yeah, but that didn't work.
But you don't just replace, like, okay, that don't work. Like, the fans are saying they want to have an alpha wide receiver. Like, you don't just get rid of Stephon Diggs and then suddenly find like the next like star unless you luck into Justin Jefferson. Like, come on, AJ. Like, come on, man. Like, you're acting like, oh, let's get rid of a top 5 receiver and let's just pluck another one out of thin air. Like,
obviously that's not possible. But I'm saying they had opportunity.
AJ, this is the NFL. It doesn't work that way. You have $55+ million to your quarterback. You're paying all these guys.
So do other teams.
Oh, yeah, but do you think most teams are extending 6 players of their own in one offseason?
No, so I'm saying it's a philosophical difference.
No, I agree with the philosophical thing, but everybody's saying the defense stinks. And if they didn't sign those guys on defense, they would stink even more. Like here's the thing. Like, you're right. It is a philosophical thing. What receiver during this offseason would you have liked them to bring? That would have been instantly the alpha star receiver.
Emeka Egbuka.
Oh,
okay. Maybe that
you wanted one. I'm giving you one. That's all.
But here's the thing. Like, this is the part of the allocation, like salary cap, offseason draft picks that like people don't acknowledge. If you want to get that star receiver that like is a rookie that's going to be elite right away, you're going to need a high first round pick most of the time. So who do you want the Bills to trade? Which future assets do you want them to give up next year or the year after? Or who on the team do you want to give up right now to make sure you can get that guaranteed?
I'm not saying I agree with this philosophy.
No. I'm just saying, AJ. I'm responding back to you and the fans. Who do you want to do to give that? Because then you're going to create a hole somewhere else on the team. Or which receiver that was a free agent this year do you want to give $30+ million to? So then we don't extend Cook, we don't extend Bernard, we don't extend Benford.
They don't want that.
Yeah, and you know what? The offense is still scoring 35 points a game during this stretch.
I know that's my. I agree with that. But I'm saying
this is the point too. They also invested in a nice contract to a number 3 receiver. What was the problem with the Bills like receiving in the last couple of years? It wasn't pre last year when they had Diggs. It was that they had no receiver depth. They had an alpha.
They had Emmanuel Sanders and Gabe Davis, and
that was going back even further. I'm talking in 2022 and then 2023. The issue with them was that they had Stephon Diggs, and then they had a mid wide receiver 2 in Gabe Davis, and they had no 3, no 4, no 5, no 6. So because they were paying certain people certain ways, they didn't have the money to go to other positions. So the Bills basically have changed their philosophy receiver room from we have one alpha that we're going to trust in all situations to no, we're going to have a 1, 2, 3, 4 that we can give the ball to in any moment, and we're not going to prioritize. What did Josh Allen do a lot when he had Stephon Diggs on the team? You got the answer? Throw interceptions because he was focused on one player. He was keying on one guy. Having no alpha has actually been one of the biggest reasons why Josh is better with the ball. And Joe Brady running the ball is playing another reason too. Think about it. What did we always hear when Brian Dable was the offensive coordinator? Josh is always pumped. He gets too excited. He's trying to make plays. What did he do? He would force balls to Stephon Diggs, force them to Gabe Davis, and they would turn it over. The one year they went 11-6 and they needed to win the last 5 games of the season just to make the playoffs. What was the problem the first 12 games of the year? Turnovers. So what did Brady do down the stretch? Run the ball more. What happened? The Bills suddenly go on a winning streak. Why? Because they play complementary football. This is all common sense shit.
Yeah, which is why they don't need it.
The problem is
Why they don't need an alpha.
The problem, AJ, is that anybody that has ever played football, coached football, or ever actually had any affiliation to high school football, college football, NFL football knows this. But you know who doesn't know this? People that are just playing Madden all the goddamn time, that don't actually watch football, that just play fantasy. Complimentary football, you always hear all the former players talking about it. But you know what? People laugh it off. Why? Because radio shock jocks that have never spent 1 minute in an actual football field don't think it's necessary. The Bills put together a winning roster. They don't care if they have an alpha receiver. They don't give one shit if they have an alpha receiver. What they care about is winning football games.
Yeah,
and
but that's what they
better
think.
than almost anyone else in the league, except for the Kansas City Chiefs. The one thing that's knocking them is they don't do it in the biggest game of the season to end the year. But you know what's going to decide whether or not they get to the Super Bowl or not? Not whether or not they have an alpha receiver. It's going to be, are they going to make the goddamn play in the goddamn moment that they need to make it? Oh, God, Partham, you're probably breathing a sigh of relief because this isn't aimed at you right now. And I know this isn't even at you, AJ, either. It's the thought process. I'm okay if you want Jamar Chase. I'm okay if you want Justin Jefferson. But they don't grow on trees. And you only have so much money. And at the end of the day, if the offense was going through what Kansas City was going through, where they averaged 22 points a game last year, and it's clear that they're struggling, then I would do something about it. But this offense is scoring more points per game than they have during the entire Josh Allen era. So it's not a problem right now. This team is built with the offensive line. They're built with the tight ends, and they build around Josh.
And that's why they can get by with a less talented receiver core.
But I'll argue that too. I understand some of the advanced analytics are going to say they're not the best receiver room. I'm not saying they're a top 10 receiver room, but this is a 15 to 20 ranked room. This is in the middle. Josh Palmer has been a solid 3 receiver for the Chargers his entire career. And if you do his per 17 game sample size, he averages about 800 yards per season. And he's a guy that should be around 50 catches per year. If you do the per 17, you look at Khalil Shakir. He just came off his 3rd season in the NFL and he had 80 plus catches. That's a guy that is ascending. Dalton Kincaid was hurt last year. I know he's a tight end, but he's a big part of your receiving plan. The Bills think he's a ascender. I know that's a little hope involved that we got to see it before we believe it, but that's what they see. And then Keon Coleman, they literally invested the 33rd overall pick in him. They're drafting him to ascend. So what we're seeing from them right now is not what the Bills think we're going to be seeing from them later in the year or next year. They are banking on all 3 of those players being better in the near future or down the line. So it's like you pay guys for future production, not past production. That's my point. God, I'm red right now, guys. I'm sorry for that. That's my rant for the day. I had to get it out. I'm not going to say they're great, but these guys know how to play football. Let's not act like these guys suck. You don't get 394 yards.
They don't suck. But on paper,
I just want to say that there was a lot of conversation there without mentioning the name Josh Allen. I think that makes the receiver room look a hell of a lot better, and Stephon Diggs hell of a lot better than he ever. Not that he ever looked, but definitely brought him to the peak that he was. It's a lot on the quarterback, and we've seen. Listen, the Brandon Beane team that he was assistant GM with Cam Newton back then, they didn't have a number 1 receiver too. They got to the Super Bowl, and then they couldn't do shit offensively in the Super Bowl, and this happened last year in this game. In the game, at the end of the game, we were just talking about the Bills at the end of a drive, not having a guy get open, having Josh scrambling, Kincaid not making a play, them having trouble. So there's, until we see it win a Super Bowl, people are going to have some kind of critique over this team.
Yeah, both sides of the.
Let's just see what it is.
Yeah.
We have to get going, but we all need to make Jets picks. I'll start off 45-17 Buffalo Bills this week.
Holy cow.
Wow, Jake. I love it.
Yeah, let me give a little bit background. I get that the Jets scored a bunch of points last week and ran all over it. Justin Fields is not even close to the passer of Lamar Jackson, so they will just be like, okay, Justin, please beat us through the air, and I don't think he's going to be able to do it.
Okay.
Listen, we all know you're picking the Jets, so we'll go straight to AJ for the next pick here.
Well, listen. You know, the closet Jets fan in me. You know, partially. I just like seeing them lose. To be honest with you, it's like every year, big market, high expectations. They make a big move here and there, and it sucks. So I am praying on their downfall, which is why I think I like them. But again, Jets, they played a really good game last week. They probably deserve to win that game. But as much as I love the Jets, man, I got the Bills 23-14.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep that rolling. Now, I think the Bills play the Bills really tough, especially the last couple of years, especially in MetLife Stadium. I do think that Justin Fields showed some signs. I watched him in the preseason. I already I love the overreaction. Like last night, everyone went from JJ McCarthy is like never going to make it to like, oh my God, this guy's, can actually be something. So it's funny, the overreaction. I was the same way with Fields. I watched that Jets game. I thought he looked good. Like I already said, Breece Hall ran the ball really well. I think that's going to be the key for the Bills defensively, is stopping those two on the ground. Garrett Wilson played a heck of a game as well. And that's going to be a tough test for Christian Benford. And hopefully maybe a Trey White can get back on the field. But I thought Dorian Strong, they might just stick with Dorian Strong. I thought he looked actually pretty decent out there. So I'm going to go Bills 30, Jets 21. I do think the Bills, move the ball offensively. Sauce Gardner, will he shadow Keon Coleman like he did DK Metcalf last week, the top receiver in Pittsburgh, or will he kind of stick to a half? It'll be interesting. It's hard to, with all the players are on the Bills offense, it's hard. So I'm going to go Bills 30, Jets 21, and the Bills move to 2-0.
I expect Justin Fields to get a rushing touchdown. I expect Breece Hall to maybe break one or two runs open. But end of the day, the Bills just have superior firepower, even with a mid 10 to 15 receiver room. Bills 35, Jets 20.
So, AJ, you know a little bit of how I make my predictions. Jake, I think you do too. I use the Vegas lines to my advantage, and I always try to see if they're telling me a story. This game opened at 7.5. which was interesting. And now it's down to 6.5. I think this is a bait line right now. Bills are coming off a big win to open their season against Baltimore. Most people don't respect the Jets. You see 6.5. I think heavy money is going to come from the public. It's going to be on the Bills covering that spread, which tells, because you think you win by a touchdown, you cover it. That tells me Vegas is saying the Bills aren't covering the spread. They don't think the Bills are going to cover, because 6.5 just seems too easy at this moment to put it on Buffalo. I'm going to say Bills 24-20. This is going to be probably a lower scoring game than what people realize. Now, I could be completely wrong. Like we'll see. But the Jets defense has consistently given Josh Allen struggles throughout the years. They are one of the teams that give the Bills issues. And with the way the Bills like to play with running the ball, the Jets probably running the ball a decent amount, I think this could be a clock, just the clock moving throughout the game. I'll say the Bills 24-20, Jets late touchdown to make it look close on the scoreboard, but Bills will have control.
I will say the last game the Bills played the Jets, they scored 40 points as well. So that is the Jets let up 34 points last week.
Yeah, so Jets defense. Aaron Glenn needs to figure that out. Aaron Glenn's more a aggressive. Ravens didn't blitz a lot, so we'll see how Aaron Glenn does. I don't know if he's.
I'm just going to say,
Rodgers looked pretty
week
good.
One overreactions. Vegas plays into them. Coming off a 41-point game, this over/under.
I argue the overreaction is that the Bills' defense isn't going to be able to handle the Jets' offense from that line. Honestly.
Well, and I'm telling you, I'm not worried about the Bills' defense. So this is going to be.
What are you watching, man? I just don't get it.
AJ, the point is, like, most of the time at the end of the year, I'm within one game on the Bills record. So until
last year,
because you talked me down a game. I was at 12-5 and you talked me to 11-6. First time I listen to AJ is the first time I get off by more than a game in 10 years. So thank you, AJ.
Yep, it's never your fault. It's always me.
We got it.
Me and AJ are gonna have a live fight.
Man, what did I come back to?
We're gonna have
Arthur's like, all right,
train wreck, rubber rowdy.
AJ's 15 minutes from me. So if you ever see me randomly get off air, I'm driving to Angola and I'm about to take you out.
All right, guys. Well, that we paid the bills, I think, in many different ways here. Let's go Bills. Let's have a great week of prep here, getting ready for Jets week. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. Thank you to our sponsor, Picasso'sPizza.net. Go Bills.